People will say I'm selfish. I'm quite a reasonable person.
Who would say you're
I
selfish?
think. What?
Who would call you selfish?
My wife, all my mates, John.
Right, so welcome to the podcast, Graham Frankish.
Thank you.
For watchers, listeners, people that aren't familiar with you, do you want to give a bit of an introduction as to who you are, what you do? Lean forward.
Sorry about that. Talking to the mic, yeah. I'm new to this, aren't I? So I'm sales director. I've been here 30 years now.
Man and boy,
right from the start. So Ken employed me a long, long time ago as a salesperson just on patch. And then I've just got, the role's grown, now looking after the team of a dozen or however many's left these days.
Good stuff. All right, and I wanted to focus this pod on sales because it's an interesting area and an area that I've learned a lot about, I guess, since I've been at the organisation. But I wanted to start with Alex Hormozy versus Graham Frankish.
Uzi.
I thought you'd say that.
Good start.
So he is like a sales influencer. Is that the best way of describing him? I'm looking at
I guess so. Yeah.
I don't know why, but yeah.
Uzi influencing.
Probably the next generation. Not calling you old at all, Graham, but the next generation of sales individual, salesperson coming through. He is one of the oracles. Is that fair? Backs you're into this world more than me.
So what's he done in his life?
He's made a fair bit of cash.
Yeah, he's made a couple of 100 million. As far as I understand,
I'll get back him up.
Yeah. As far as I understand it, he started out with gyms and fitness or something, and he would go and like buy up gyms or get gyms to join his franchise or something like that.
Yeah.
And now he does
a package of
and now he does this is probably wrong, but like investor.com or something.
Thing is with that though, sorry,
but
Greg.
Can he sell photocopiers?
Lean into the mic.
I think it's quite a niche.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think it's quite a niche industry, and I think it requires a particular skill set.
I think you're probably right, and we'll get onto that in a second. But anyway, this Alex Hormozy tweets a lot. I'll explain tweeting later on. But
I'm not that old.
So I'm going to read out some of his sales tweets. Okay. So a sale always happens. Either you sell the other person on your solution or they sell you on their excuse. And the person who talks the most loses.
I accept that quite often the person who talks the most loses. You should speak very little. However, I don't know that you're selling a solution versus an excuse. I think it should be a natural process. Either they want to do it or they don't. And if you can flip it around the other way and think, well, if it was me, would I do it? The answer to that is yes. Then there shouldn't be an excuse why they won't do it.
And just dive into that, the person that speaks the most loses. Because I think you're right. And I think my perception coming into Spectrum was of a salesperson, stereotypical salesperson, was gifted the gab, somebody, used car dealer, giving the spiel, blah, blah, blah. Why is that wrong? Help me understand. I don't understand it now, but help the audience understand that.
Because the customer has to think for themselves. So if you fill in the gaps all the time and fill in the blanks, they haven't connected it all in their own mind to get to the same conclusion that you've got to. So you know all the steps, you've arrived there, but they've got to do it for themselves. So if you're quiet and they think, they start building that in their own heads. And that's why you both end up at the same place at the same time.
So that's like...
Otherwise, you're at different rungs of the ladder. And if you're there and they're there, that's where you don't get sales.
And that's one of the things that I learned coming into Spectrum was, I'd been very much sort of a relationship, just nice conversations type thing. And I remember,
you love filling in the blanks, don't you?
Well, I'm getting better. But absolutely. And to a degree, when you have your one-to-ones with, Graham and Lee, it's very much like, are they at the same stage as you, John? And, and sometimes it's yes and sometimes it's no. And it's like, right, just say that and just keep quiet and let them start talking. And then and as Graham said, they'll start joining the dots up and then they'll get to where you are, and then in actual fact they can drive it because they'll start asking you questions that move you to where you want to get to.
Yeah, it's a technique, but it's not like a trick, if you know what I mean. It's good for the client to actually think that. If they do arrive at the same place, that's where you'd need to be.
I suppose it's the same principles as coaching somebody in your team, isn't it? Rather than telling somebody in your team, yeah, here's what you do, then they don't learn for themselves.
Absolutely.
It's exactly the same principles from what you've just said.
Absolutely.
All
Because
right.
you're coaching the sale, you're coaching your client to agree with you.
Good. I like that.
But
So-
you should never sell anything to anybody that you wouldn't do yourself. Sorry,
Explain that again. No, say that again. Let's dive into that.
So if you don't believe that you would do it yourself, you shouldn't be in the same room with them. It's not fair. You're forcing something onto somebody that you wouldn't even do yourself. That's poor.
And that's often asked in one-to-ones. You know, Graham would be like, "Would you do it?" And you know, and if you don't, then
And
right,
why?
yeah, exactly. And why would you do it? And then in your head, you're kind of like, you're then joining the dots up, going, "Do you know what? I haven't covered enough for me to believe that they should do it. So if I don't believe it, then one, I don't become authentic, and two, how can I ever expect them to want to buy something from me?"
And again, that probably flies against the stereotype of a salesperson, doesn't it? In terms of trying to just flog used cars to anybody that walks onto the
Absolutely.
forecourt.
Most salespeople are rubbish. They're all about product, all about forcing it on people, all about trying to. You shouldn't have to hard close anybody. It's just a conversation, and it's not a difficult job if you're reasonable with people. I think if you're honest, transparent, and they think he's an all right kid, I believe what he's saying, that's fine.
And I think so. I didn't actually have an opinion before I joined Spectrum around selling photocopiers or printers or you know, anything like that. But what I really quickly understood was there's an awful lot of science to it, which I'd never been taught in like my previous sort of 10 years in sales, which was probably more to do with, you know, which Lee and Graham have said on many occasions, just order taking and not really selling. And actually the science is really, really interesting. And then it gets you to that point where the journey becomes just a natural journey to a conclusion where everyone's like, do you know what? Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, there's a question in science to unravel precisely what the problem is and what you think you might need to solve it. So that's very scientific. And then the delivery of that is a bit science, a bit
theatre.
So what is the science of the first stage of that you just explained?
Just
questioning science to that. Yes.
questioning techniques with open questions, that's all. And again, the open questions are for the client to think for themselves.
And when you say an open question for the audience,
who,
what do you
what,
think?
when,
what you say?
where, why.
Who, what, when, why,
So
where.
you can't say yes or no to it.
Good stuff. And that opens the conversation, opens up opportunities.
Yes.
All right.
And they start thinking for themselves.
Like it. All right, I'm going to have Hormozy versus Frankish, take two.
Okay. Who won take one?
I think you won it on points, I would say.
Okay.
So we'll move
He won
on.
it on money.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Hormozy's got the dollars.
As he drives into his $1 million mansion, do you think he's that bothered? What's he called? Hormozy?
Alex Hormozy.
Okay.
Yeah. Right, so 10,000 cold calls will teach you more about sales than any book will.
It'll teach you more about resilience, but I don't think it'll teach you more than a book. See, I'm not sure about a book. I quite like, so we've had some structured training from Jane Harper.
Mm-hmm.
We've had some structured training from Canon, and those principles that we learned 30 years ago still apply. So I think classroom training wins over a book, wins over 1,000 cold calls.
Role playing as well.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that going back to pre-working at Spectrum, none of that. Just, you know, there's a book, read that, and that'll be that'll be what you need to do. My first month, 6 weeks was like, right, we got some sales training for you, and I was like, brilliant, I'm all for that. And then and it's weird when you think part of being sales is you're in front of people you don't really.
Doing it in front of your peers is awful.
But role playing in front of your peers,
like
and especially when you don't really know them, is just the worst. It's the pits. But it actually, hardens you up. And actually, what better way to learn than actually people that have done it, been successful, telling you what to do, what not to do, and what to think about before you go out. So yeah, I would say role playing with people that have been successful in whatever you're endeavouring to do is
so
valuable.
Classroom book. You do learn on the job. So I agree with learning on the job, but I don't think making however many
10,000
cold calls.
But resilience is a key part of sales.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the ability, if you think of a cold call, you got to get past the gatekeeper, and then when you do get past the gatekeeper, you've got a moment of time to get the person talking and identify an opportunity. It's a micro sale in a sale, isn't it? Oh, is that
all you're doing is selling the appointment, really. If you're talking too much on the phone, you've lost the reason for needing the meeting. So your primary objective is just to get an appointment, to then have a discussion, and to genuinely believe in what you're about to tell them. I think if you think they'd be an idiot if they didn't see you, it comes across.
Yeah, I'm sticking up for Ormos here because I can definitely see the benefits of that practical coming in every day, picking the phone up, trying to generate appointments.
Okay, I'll give him that over reading a book. He didn't say about classroom training, did he?
Classroom. I don't know what do you learn better at? Sitting in a classroom, listening to someone talk, or actually?
Yeah, but if you do 10,000 calls
without any training, you've got no appointments. If you do some training first and then make 10,000 calls, so you need to do both. If you did the 10,000 calls after you've had the training, I guarantee you would get more appointments than if you just got your kids to ring 10,000.
and also, if you think, and it's you go back to when we were all younger, lots of selling was done on the door. People would knock on the door, and I can't imagine anything harder than that. But actually, going out and old-fashioned, canvassing. Actually, just being able to get some information, to strike a bit of rapport with that gatekeeper. So then when you come back and call, it's not a cold call anymore. It's actually a semi-warm call because you can go, I popped in a couple of days ago. Oh yeah, I remember you were a drowned rat type scenario. And you get a bit of empathy.
Why are we giving all our secrets away?
Well, we'll cut this out then.
Because it's
I was trying to show that I'd learnt something.
Yeah. Do you think they are secrets?
Well, they shouldn't. No.
Do you?
No, I don't think they. Do you?
I don't know.
We see other people out doing that.
I don't think they're secrets. I think there is a modern perception that the likes of canvassing, as we call it, the likes of picking the phone up and doing a cold call, as it was referred to, I think there's a perception that's perceived as old school and not the way it's done anymore, if I'm honest.
I think the perception of sales in the UK is poor. I think in America, a salesperson is seen as a professional, whereas in the UK, they're frowned upon, and it annoys me because every business has to sell something, and yet they can't wait to slam the phone down on a sales guy. He's only doing his job. Think about it the other way. What are your sales guys doing to other people?
Yeah,
I think you should always be reasonable with people and hear them out, and if they're good enough, it's a nice test actually. If somebody's really good, salespeople are easy to sell to. Somebody's really good on the phone to me. Yeah, come and see me. I'm delighted to see you. You've done a really good job.
Do you think that's the fault of that? There's a lot of bad salespeople out there as well.
Yes.
So it leaves a bit of a sour taste in some people's mouths. So then, all salespeople get tarred with the same.
I think
brush.
we're the anomaly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it surprises people, and then I think that's why we're successful, because when we do get in front of people, they think, oh yeah, these are reasonable people with good products, and I believe it.
Hi guys, just jumping in, I want to talk about one of the services we offer, which is robotic process automation, also known as RPA. That is software that replicates human behavior. So if you've got people downloading spreadsheets, attaching them to emails, going on portals, downloading information, moving data around, all that stuff is perfect for a robot. So if that's interesting, get in touch. Let's have a chat. Let's see if we can help. Enough from me. Back to the conversation.
So how do you mitigate that sort of people having an attitude and slamming the phone down then? How do you circumvent that?
Don't know that you can, other than
that's the resilience
other than explain, forgive me, how do you sell your products? And put the boot on the other foot. They, you're trying to create empathy. I'm just trying to do my job here. Don't give me a hard time.
Why do you think sales do have a perception in the UK, as you say, around not a professional?
I think what Bax just said then, because I think the quality
pushy.
There's more bad salespeople than good salespeople.
And what are the traits when you say a bad salesperson? And you've probably worked with a few. What are the traits that you're thinking of that you think are wrong?
Speak too much. Don't listen. Don't understand what the client's trying to do, and try and do it a bit too fast. So if you imagine going for a car, they're on top of you, trying to close you there, and then I'll go and see my manager. Can I do a deal today? Well, on a second, I've got 2 or 3 cars to look at. I don't know what I'm picking yet. So if someone was reasonable, what are you interested in? What kind of things do you do on a weekend? What kind of things do you need from your car? Right, okay, I've got a perception. Are you looking at anything else? Yeah, I'm going to look at all these others. Well, yeah, when you've looked at all these others, come and see me and we can compare them against ours. Slow it all down. Relax.
And what are you doing there? I think I know what you're doing there in terms of go and see the other cars and then come back and see me afterwards.
Well, because then they've got all the information so that if your solution is right, you can finish it all off there and then, rather than they've had to go away. So that is sort of a closing tactic. But if they've got all the information and then they still agree that your solution is right, you might as well do it there and then.
Okay. What about kind of nature versus nurture for salespeople? So can you train it, or are people born good salespeople?
I think you can train it and improve it, but there's certain inquisitiveness. It's very difficult to train. So we had a guy come for an interview the other day, and some of the questions that he said were excellent. It's what you would train. How have I done? What happens next? For somebody without any training, that's good.
Natural.
Yeah.
And are there any other traits that you're looking for? So inquisitiveness, is that a trait? I'm not sure. But if are there any other traits that you're looking for in a great salesperson?
I think you need to be personable, honest. I think honesty is probably the most important thing.
What do you reckon, JV?
Yeah, I agree. I think you need to be. I guess those would be then bracketed as like credible. I think you need, when you're representing a business, you need to be a credible representative to for people to believe you. Know, like, and trust, isn't it? You often say you want that. You need to be empathetic, or you need to be on a relationship where you get on. They need to believe what you're saying, and they need to go, do you know what? And that's one of the things we do is, part of the process is get people to come into our offices. We love showing people what we do and how we do it, because we want them to actually understand it's not just about John or Graham, it's about the team behind us, and getting them to actually understand the business, just not the person. We're not afraid of anyone coming in and seeing what we do.
Yeah, I think comfort's a good word, actually.
Yeah.
Comfortable with you, comfortable with the product, comfortable with the business, comfortable with everything.
Do you think sales has changed over the 30 years that you've been doing it? Or do you still think the things that you were doing 30 years ago are still the right things to be doing today?
Yes, I think they are. The internet has made a difference. So
how?
So I think the further down the journey with self-help or doing their own research.
Yeah.
So I think that has made a difference, and very easy to compare and benchmark. So I think people think they're more of an expert than they are. So I think the buyers are more educated, but probably think they're more educated than they actually think they are.
And so how does that change what you do from a sales perspective?
Doesn't dramatically. You've just got to be aware of the fact that all of this information is available, but it's only an extra 1 or 2 questions to ask. What research have you done? What do you know about us? What do you know about what you're trying to achieve?
So it's asking those questions to understand what they do know from their own research, and therefore where they're at on the ladder, as you called it.
Absolutely. That's an absolute key. So if you're on rung one rung 3 and they're on rung 1, you need to get them back up to where. I'm never saying rung again. Rung 1.
Do you have to get them up to your rung, or do you have to drop down to their rung?
Either.
Yeah. You just need to make sure you're level.
It can be both.
Okay.
JV?
I completely agree, because ultimately you don't. If we're always going to be out of sync, then it's going to fall down. So it's recognizing where we are and then either getting them up to us or go back to them and then go back up together.
Yeah, they need to be ready.
Checking and inspecting is.
Yeah, and how do you do that? So how do you know where I'm at on the ladder when you're working with me on a sale?
Just asking questions, just to see what your perception is of what we're doing next. If yours is, I'm going to go and do some more research. Oh, I thought we were beyond that. Okay, you go do your research and then we'll meet up again. And then otherwise you might be saying, oh, well, here's my price. Are you going to do it? Oh, hang on a second, do my research yet? Like, slow down.
Okay.
And I think that is a key thing. We're not in a rush. We shouldn't be in a rush. It takes as long as it should take to us both be at the same place, both be comfortable. Yeah. It's a natural progression just to sign an order.
Okay.
I think one of the other things which I learned here, probably slower than Graham and Lee would have wanted, is the ability to lose quick, because that's actually a win as well. And sometimes it's like you cling on, and then you've invested time, you invest other people's time in one-to-ones, and then actually, do you know what? One, you probably weren't at the same spot and you didn't check and inspect to get to the same spot. And then actually, do you know what? No problems at all. If you don't actually, if it's something that you're actually not bothered about, or you don't need to do, it's a nice to have rather than a need, if you will, then actually losing quick is as big a win as winning the deal.
Completely agree. Yeah. We sell a premium product. If the potential customer is not interested in premium products, let's know that at the beginning. If you're prepared to pay a little bit more for all of these reasons, but if you're not, that's fine.
Just tell us.
Yeah, there's other people out there who sell poorer products for cheaper money, and for some people that's as good a fit. It's all right.
That was a real light bulb moment for me when I joined. I think it was Lee actually that said to me, the two winners in the sale, the person that wins the sale and the person that walks away the first, if it's not for them. And yeah, that was a real light bulb for me.
Only if you use the time that you've saved to create more sales. If you read a book and sit in your ass, then you want one.
So how do you, and I think this is probably the hardest bit of sales, but how do you generate new opportunities in today's world?
You've got to be disciplined, really. You've got to have structure. You've got to understand who your target audience is, and you've got to physically do it. So people can get lists, colour coordinate them, put them into this category. Oh, these are 10 million turnover, these are 6 million turnover. If you don't ring them, if you don't pick up the phone, you're not getting any appointments. You're not getting through. You've got to physically do it, as Tim Campbell always said.
No, I think you're right. All right, and obviously, as a business, we sell two things predominantly. So we sell hardware, which you've been involved in for 30 odd years.
Yep.
And we sell software, and we have been doing for the last 15 or so years.
Yep.
How is that from a sales perspective? How is that different, or is it different selling a copier, as you called it earlier, versus a software solution?
Yes, software, the sales cycle is longer, more stakeholders involved. So again, you've got to make sure that each, we talked about the ladder before.
Yeah.
Each different stakeholder is at the same place of the ladder. You might have somebody up here, but the IT guy's here, and we need to get him back into line with where we need to be. So I think it's a more complex, more difficult sale. But again, once you arrive at the end, I would do it if I was you. Well, yeah, I agree. Let's get on with it. But
John?
I think it is more complicated.
What's your view, John?
That's a revelation.
It is. We've got it on camera as well.
We have. Let's clip that. I think. I completely agree, because I think the difference is there's an element of change management as well.
Yeah.
A business. Isn't just, and I'm simplifying it, and I'm not doing it in a demeaning thing. It's not a case of changing one version of a copier to another version of a copier.
In the main with a copy, you know what you're going to get, roughly speaking.
Yeah.
Whereas your solution is impacting a hell of a lot more people in the business and how they operate.
Yeah, hence the, like you say, Gray, hence the time scale involved, you know. So you could sell a copier if you've got the, you know, the right stakeholder and the right appetite and whatever in the same day. You could, but actually you're never going to do that with software, because you've got to understand the pain points, you've got to understand the stakeholders involved, decision making tree and all of that. And then you've got to go through a process of getting them on board to then go, like, you know, you get to that mutual thing where it's like, do you know what? Yeah, this is the right thing to do. Commercials, you know.
This is your ready-made excuse now. This is, I told you it was complicated.
No, not at all. No, but do you know what? And I hate doing this, but actually, Graham does both like really well. And because he's very strict and structured in how he does it, there's no real difference. It's just controlling the process and doing the right things at the right time. And yeah, I mean, you know, he's sold copiers, hardware to big, you know, organizations, and he sold software to big organizations, you know, massively successfully. So it is, well, I'd be more interested. You have surprised me by saying you feel that software is, you know, can be more, is it complex sale, or is it just a more time consuming sale?
I think it's a bit of both. I think it is more complex because you are integrating with business systems, and there's just more stakeholders.
For me, that's the part. It's the having the more stakeholders. There's more things that could go wrong if you don't make sure that I don't know why I'm doing that. If you don't make sure that everyone within that, so the IT manager, the finance director, I don't know, the managing director, whoever, you know, whoever's going to sign that contract, is with you, because you can get people that are going to benefit from it in their day to day, that are like, oh, this is amazing, fantastic. You also get people that are going to use it every day that might be threatened by their role maybe being automated. So it's
and on that basis, you need to be able to ask pretty direct questions in a nice way to understand where you're at. So it might be that you're thinking, yeah, Janet don't get this, and you have to say, are you all right with this, Janet? You know, oh no, yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm worried that it's going to affect, you know, I'm not very good with IT. Okay, we can handle that. But you've got to read the room a bit and be prepared to say, I'm not so sure so-and-so's on board with this. Well, yeah, funny you should say that. They're not. Well, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to stop now, or do we get them on board?
Call it out. Yeah, okay. I think there's elements. It's interesting that, because obviously my background is in project management, software development, that sort of world. There's lots of comparisons actually between what sales you guys do day to day and that world, because it is almost managing a project. It is a 6-month time period at times, and there's multiple stages to it. There's stakeholder management that you need to include. There's change management you need to include. Also, that whole fail fast, that's a principle of software development. Is don't spend months building the wrong thing. If you're going to find out it's the wrong thing, do it, find out bloody quickly and move on. And I think it's a lot of principles that's transferable between the two. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. Probably going to dig myself a hole, especially with Graham next to me. I do think it's slightly harder from a software perspective to lose quicker. Now, that might be my failings. But I think because ultimately, if you have certain stakeholders that you're dealing with, and you're asking who else needs to be involved, no, just us. And then you get to a point where it's like, you know, you're at, you know, third base, and then they go, oh, I just want to bring John in. Okay, where's that come from? And then suddenly now you've got a whole different ball game. You've got to potentially go back to the start, and that's where, you know,
the thing is, once you've done that once and you've made the mistake once, you should be able to ask those direct questions to flush that out, I think. Yeah. So I accept it, but I think it's handleable.
Yeah. Do people lie though? Yeah, I'm the man. I make the decision.
Yeah.
And then 3 months later, just need to go speak to Jeff.
Yeah,
Jeff
but again, that's experience to think, yeah, I'm not quite sure that you do have the clout that you think you've got.
Yeah,
and then subtly you've got to find that out.
One of the good things that Graham often says, sadly, in one-to-ones is, have we asked, what was the last project you signed off, or what was the last project that went in? Who signed that off? And very quickly you find out, you know what, it wasn't John. It was Graham, and I've had no exposure to Graham yet. In which case, I need to press pause, and I need to.
Yeah, get other people.
We can't go further until I've spoken to Graham, and Graham goes, "I'm fully on board with this." Or do you know what?
That's the thing. That's the asking a few more questions to establish. All right. So, what other things have you bought? What was the process? How did that go?
Orders of magnitude as well.
Yeah. And then you're thinking, well, yeah, I know you bought some pens and pencils, but you haven't spent 100 grand's worth of software. So when was the last £100,000 purchase you had? Well, I've never done. Right. Okay. So you're not quite where you think you are.
Okay, me again, just jumping in to talk about one of the processes that we often get asked to automate, which is the processing of supplier invoices, also known as accounts payable automation. So what does that mean? Well, most businesses receive invoices from their suppliers, and a lot of businesses still have people that are manually reviewing those invoices, making sure that they're correct, making sure they're accurate, and then manually rekeying them into a finance system or an ERP system. Well, our solution can automate that process. So typically an invoice will come in, we'll use capture technology to understand what's on that invoice. We'll then match that data up against goods received note to make sure that we've received the product. We'll match it up against purchase order data to make sure that somebody has placed an order for that product. And ultimately, if we can match that up, we can automatically push that into an ERP system or finance system, and nobody has to touch it. How good does that sound? If there are exceptions, if there are things that need to be checked, that's fine. We can use digital workflow to push that to somebody to eyeball it and say, is this correct, or does something need to change? Ultimately, though, that can then be pushed again into an ERP system or a finance system. This is about making your life easier. It's about making operations as quick and as efficient as possible. And we do that all the time. If that sounds interesting, then get in touch. That's enough from me. Back to the podcast. Do you get a response of, it's none of your bloody business? Because you're asking a lot of questions. You're being quite inquisitive, as you said earlier. Do you get that response of, well, hang on, what's got to do with you? Back off. And how do you handle that?
Because you've got to explain the reasons why I'm asking.
And I think it's also the way you ask it. And actually, here we go. I've not come across anyone better than him in the way they ask it. He asks a question without it sounding like he's asking a question. By the end of it, he's got a notepad full of all the answers that he needs. And if he hasn't, he's not moving on until he has. I hate doing that.
It's very nice of you, John.
But it's true. Genuinely, it's true. And that's the key. Rarely have I come across someone who's gone, whoa, you're a bit nosy, aren't you? Because you do have to explain, well, there's quite a lot of reasons why I'm asking that, and I might as well ask it now because your time's valuable and my time is valuable.
Do you explain that, or do you wait for an objection and then you explain it? Do you explain at the beginning, actually, I'm going to ask you loads of questions for these reasons?
It's not conversational.
Not really. It should just evolve. But if somebody is quite abrupt back at you, then yeah, you say, well, I'm going to ask you a load of questions for all of these reasons, and at the end of it, I'll be able to build something that will work for you or not. So if I don't ask you the questions, we could be wasting each other's time.
In the discovery piece,
and that's the thing at the minute, no one's got any time.
No. In the discovery piece, I am very much like I lay the foundations along. Today's going to be more about us understanding you, which if I'm a prospective client, I'm happy with that. They want to know what you're doing, they want to understand what, as a business, we do. And they can only help us if they understand that, and they can only understand that if they ask the question. So in that environment, the discovery piece, yeah, it is a bit more, look, we are going to be asking lots of questions, but I've yet to come across anyone who's got very defensive and gone, well, I don't really want to tell you that, because ultimately they're only at the table because they're interested in knowing whether we can help.
Okay. And when you say that Graham's got a brilliant knack of asking those questions, which I agree with.
I feel a bit uncomfortable.
But what
he doesn't really.
How does he
this
get
big dog status?
How do you get away with it, or is there a knack to it, or is it just you're just born able to ask those questions?
You don't get away with it. Well, there's 30 years of experience. Firstly, he's had good teachers.
Yeah,
but I would say experience. Obviously, ability, but he's a lot of experience. And you know, I remember, and even now, I may sit in a meeting and I'm like, wow, the way you asked that, and I note it down because I'm like, yeah, that's handy.
So is it in the wording or is it in the tone or
yes,
well,
both?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
We often say this precisely, you know, and then when you regurgitate it back, that's not quite what I said.
And he's a nightmare.
That's
like
not
that
quite what I said.
Yeah, but
it matters.
You're not doing it on that level now, are you? You're just doing it like through intuition. So when you're teaching people, you're telling them, say,
it's difficult.
Like
yeah, it's now.
But for you, you're just like,
yeah, they call it unconsciously competent.
Unconsciously incompetent.
Yeah, that's you. do you ever?
All right.
Do you ever get into like I don't know how to describe it, like a sales joust, if you like. So, for example, you go somewhere, someone who doesn't work in sales is trying to who works in sales, sorry, but doesn't know you work in sales, is trying to sell you something. Do you sort of like, do you know what I mean?
What if somebody's trying to sell to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, if someone's trying to sell
to
me,
the manoeuvres are coming.
No, but again, if they've done the job properly, it shouldn't be a manoeuvre.
Yeah.
It's just a conversation.
But if they do a bad manoeuvre, do you like...
I'm already thinking, yeah, you're annoying me. I don't really want to deal with you.
And do you do anything shady, like, you know, he's doing that manoeuvre, like, I work in sales, I know what he's doing. I'm going to lead him down this, like...
No, I hate that. Oh, I'm in sales too, I know all the tricks.
Yeah.
No, it's not a case of a trick. I just think, how am I going to get myself out of here? Because I don't really want to deal with this guy.
And often...
So it'll be a fake excuse.
Right. Often we'll have situations, when I say often, every few years you have a conversation around like, oh, I've been looking at cars and I'm using the car analogy, and Graham used it earlier, but it's like you'll show interest in something. So I want X car, and then you never hear back from them, and you're like, well, that's one of the main basics is if a client shows interest, you go back to them.
Yeah.
And as soon as they can't be bothered, leave it with me, Mr. Frankish. I'll search out a car, look all over the country for you. And then
you never hear from them.
And you never hear from them. You're like, and then they'll ring up and go, well, why didn't you buy it from me then? Well, forgive me. I came to you. I told you what I wanted. You said you'd go away. And then suddenly I don't hear from you. So I'll tell you what, I'll go to someone who's going to do what they say they're going to do. And I think that's an important point as well, is around you do what you say you're going to do when you said you were going to do it, rather than, oh yeah, right, I'll take that down, and they never hear from you.
Yeah, a lot of mine now is repeat business. So it is, as you say, I'm proactive at looking after the account, and then I'm reactive if they've got an issue, get on with it very, very quickly. So it becomes a slightly easier because it's proven. You know, all the things that we said we were going to do, we've proven and delivered, and I'm just on top of it.
There is a trend, or there certainly was a trend in sales, to kind of split sales into this hunter-farmer kind of mentality. Yeah. I just wanted your view on that. Is that because you do both, don't you?
No, not really. I don't.
You're not?
No, I'm not really.
You're not a hunter anymore, I suppose.
No.
But you have in the past.
Yeah, but a long time ago. Hunting's harder, in my opinion.
So in that case, do you believe in that kind of philosophy of split the two out, because they are very different jobs?
I can understand the logic to it, and if people did split like that, I think it is, as I said, logical. We tend to do both, really.
Just great. Why do you say that you think hunting's hard? I know the answer, but why do you say that hunting's harder?
Because you have to do a lot of effort to get just one appointment. Whereas if you're farming, you've usually got a reasonable reason for ringing, and they know you, and it's, you know, you can make 10 phone calls and make 10 appointments. You make 10 phone calls to cold hunting stuff, you might get one.
You might not even get through to anyone.
Yeah.
Do you want to just explain what you're talking about for people that might not understand this on the farmer thing?
So farming, I guess, is account management. So once you've got an account, it's farming it, reaping more from that account. Hunting is actually
developing it,
finding something in the first place. So new business against to an existing customer.
Okay, got you. Do you ever use your powers for evil?
Have I got any powers of evil? I don't know what you mean.
Like, so, you know, when I'm in sales training with Jim.
That's not sales training.
And
that's colouring in.
But when she's like teaching us about like open question, closed question, hypothetical, you know, the order to do it in, what's the effect? So what's the effect? You know, all the sort of little sort of psychological things that I need to be aware of. I'm sort of sat there listening, thinking, yeah, this is really good. But like, there's like an evil part of my mind that's going, I bet this would work on my missus actually. If I just like did this, or
I couldn't possibly comment.
My kids, so that's a yes then.
Yeah, no comment.
No, I've got nothing to say on that matter.
Next,
what about you, John?
Questioning techniques are questioning techniques.
So
leave it at that.
So yeah, you are evil, and you're evil as well, John.
No comment.
It's not evil.
You know what I mean, though. I'm being
evil's a strong word, isn't it?
Yeah. Manipulative.
Yeah.
Can we through questioning? Can we manipulate what we want?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Stakeholder management, isn't it? Everybody's selling or managing stakeholders to varying degrees every day, aren't they? We all interact with each other. It's the politics of working in a business.
Yeah.
Everybody uses that type of skills,
and that's the thing, isn't it? There's the external sales, so selling to, but there's also sometimes just as important, if not sometimes more important, is the internal sale as to why we want that to take that client on for that particular project that may be slightly outside because the opportunity behind it is huge. So yeah, managing the internal sale, not all the time, but can be just as important. So you've got everyone on the side that's going to support you to do what you've said you're going to do.
It is absolutely, yeah. You know how to influence me. You involve
You've
me in
got
the
to be joking, mate. I'll try to influence
absolutely.
you.
If you influence me at the end, go, I want to do X, Y, and Z, and sign here. Well, hang on, you've not taken me.
No,
I
absolutely.
Does he ask you reasonable questions?
He's learning, yeah.
Oh my god! It's just meant to be about Graham, not about killing me.
Yeah. So in a way, it's almost like an inception because you think you're manipulating, quotation marks. You think you're bringing him in on the rung, but actually he knows you're bringing him in on the rung, and now he's bringing you onto his rung. It's like two ladders that are interlocking. It's all a bit mad, really. I thought it was like, because I said to Jane, I was like, it does seem as though it's a form of manipulation, but the more she went through it
seems
like sort of like the questioning and the sales and stuff, but the more you think about it, the more you understand it, you realize that like often, and we chatted about this on, I think the last podcast, is like usually people haven't asked themselves those questions. Correct. Or they create like a bit of a false sort of narrative in their mind. Maybe they need to justify this or whatever. We all sort of tell ourselves lies, right?
Yeah.
So you're almost there. It's almost like a weird sort of therapy, if you like, because you're trying to just give them the space and the encouragement to go through those steps, and then if they arrive at the answer and you just happen to have the product, then it's winner chicken dinner, isn't it?
And it's all right to arrive at the answer and it's not you.
Yeah.
So you still ask all those questions and said, you know what, if I was you, I don't think this is right.
Yeah. And that's
and
something,
I agree. Yeah, that's okay.
And you've always seemed really proud about the fact that that's the way you do things. Why is that so important to you?
Well, because I think it's your honesty and integrity.
And I was going to say, ultimately, if you do that, you do the right thing for the right reasons. They may not buy from you then, but they'll remember that Graham was actually a decent guy, professional, and actually the next time something comes around, if let's say option A that we all agreed was what you were going to go with doesn't work out, they're going to go, do you know what, Graham was ultra professional. I'll ring Graham up and say, do you want to come back in now and we'll have a conversation.
That's happened to numerous salespeople now in 30 odd years. I remember you being honest before. I do actually need what you've got now. Yeah. So can we talk about it?
So it's that good impression that gets left behind.
Yeah.
And doing the right thing.
You shouldn't lie.
But and going back to what was being discussed earlier, so like a lot of salespeople will do that, won't they?
What, lie?
Yeah, and are pushy and they just want to get to the prize, and that's the reputation around salespeople.
But people can see through that, surely.
But a lot of people probably do actually get hoodwinked and manipulated into those scenarios. Is that attitude that you've got and that we see at Spectrum, has that come from, that's just kind of the type of person that you are, or is it through seeing that happen and realizing that actually when you go down that route, it can often cause more issues for you? Just because you get the sale, all right, that's fine.
I think it's a bit of both. I'm quite, people will say I'm selfish. I'm quite a reasonable person.
Who would say you're selfish?
Think. What?
Who would call you selfish?
My wife, all my mates, John. So yeah, but I'm a reasonable person, I think. What was the question again? I forgot.
I agree. Just
have you learned the hard way?
Yeah.
I've made mistakes. Yeah. No, not really. I've learnt the hard way of being outmaneuvered by a customer. But when you think back, really, we were just on different rungs, and I didn't see it.
Ultimately, there's a thing around what we sell isn't cheap. In whether it's software or whether it's hardware, we're at the higher end of things. So there needs to be value, and part of our role is to get that value out so that the client understands actually, you know what, it's worth paying more. Ultimately, picking up on what Bax was saying, you do get people that will just go in and go, do you know what, I'll do it cheap as chips. I'm half the price of Spectrum, and there will be people that will buy from it, and they'll just get what they pay for, you know, what they pay for, and that will be paying down the line, because actually that's all they're driven by is pounds and pence. Whereas the people that we want to engage with, and we do engage with, is the people that understand the value, because we've asked those questions to actually amplify what the value we will be able to bring, be that the quality of the kit or the quality of the service.
And we can prove it.
Yeah.
I think, the comfort in, don't take my word for it, speak to so-and-so.
I have a view of a B2B buyer being different to a B2C buyer, particularly for the likes of software, in that I don't think being half the price helps. If I'm the buyer of software in this one, and I've got two options on the table, one is X amount and one is half of X amount.
Your reaction is, what's wrong with that?
If I go with that and it's shit, I could lose my job, and it's not my money at the end of the day. So I'm probably going to go with that one, because that gives me more comfort.
But that is IT related. You never get sacked for buying IBM, etc. The old adages. So there's comfort in a name in IT, which is difficult to break down sometimes.
I want to ask you about theatre, because I hear a lot about theatre in Spectrum as a kind of word in terms of the sales process. And can you explain what you mean by that?
Again, it's questioning understanding to see really where the customer's at. So if you're having a conversation with them and you understand that really they need to save money, they're prepared to spend a little bit more, or just, it's more about understanding so that you're not one-dimensional. So you've not just blundered in and said, here's what I've got. You've just questioned it, got a perception of what they're trying to achieve, and then go away and marry up. So theatres that's maybe the art side of it rather than the theatre.
Okay, all right. Last question for me then. So I guess what's the biggest mistake you think you've made in sales over the years? Is there anything that you think, I've learned a lesson there?
Only with losses. If you look back at the sales that you didn't get, you can really there'll be a reason. So if you look at the sales that you've got, there's a reason that you got them, because you did everything right. And the ones that you didn't get, if you look and think, well, yeah, I didn't really qualify that, I didn't really see whether that guy was involved or not. I could see that Shirley went on board and I didn't really ask her. So you learn more from your losses for sure.
Same question to you, John.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the key to it is how quickly you learn. One of the things I learned quite quickly here was, if you lose a sale, you're normally like, oh, that's really not ideal, and I've invested X, Y, Z time in it, and then you go back to Lee and Graham, and they're like, no problems, just learn from it. Make sure that, and you're going to lose a number of sales, and in an ideal world, you'll lose them quick. But if you don't, don't make it be the same reason for more than one, ideally, or two. And then, right, let's part that. You've learnt that. So going forward, you're going to make sure you ask those questions to make sure we don't have that result again.
Brilliant.
Or you'd have lost earlier.
Which is a positive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. We can't sell to everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I think it's worth asking as well, obviously, because, it's something we're always thinking about, but like, any advice, words of wisdom to probably younger people, but I guess anyone who's thinking about wanting to get into sales, like, where do you start? I mean, did you plan to get into sales? Or
no, I think
it just revealed itself to you.
I think it's underrated.
Yeah.
I think can be the best job in the world. We've had some incentives, some nice trips. I've been to places that I wouldn't normally go to through sales and successes. You're a phone call away from euphoria, and you're a phone call away from despair. Yeah, I'm doing it. No, I'm not doing it. So it's quite an emotional roller coaster, but it's interesting. You're doing different things. Your daily tasks are all different. So I wouldn't personally swap it. I wouldn't put anybody off doing it. I think it helps to have good products, good people around you. So you can be good at sales, but be in a crap company.
On incentives, actually, trips.
Yeah.
Because I think it goes hand in hand with sales, particularly at Spectrum, but I think actually broader industry as well. Why is that? Why is it such a integral part of the sales team?
I think it gives them drive and focus towards the end of a particular period. And then once you've been on a trip and you've enjoyed it and bonded with people, you don't want to miss out on your next one. I've missed one, and I thought, I'm not doing that again.
So this was the first company that I've worked for that did incentives, and it's very much like that. Sadly, I've missed two, and on each occasion, when you're left back in the hutch and they're all like, sending pictures on the WhatsApp group going, yep, we're in XYZ beach and whatever, that drives you to, right, the next half or the next incentive period, get my head down, because I don't want to be the one left back in the hutch. But actually it's a stressful job for all the good things that Graham said with sales, because that one phone call can make your weekend, ruin your weekend, make your week, ruin your week. Having something at the end of it that's like a bit of a, do you know what? Yeah, you've worked hard, this year, this half, and you've done well. And do you know what? As a reward, you can do this or that. And it's been new to me, or it's not now, but it does, and it drives focus, but it also makes the stress of sales, because there's no beating around the bush. It can be a stressful role.
Yeah.
It makes it worthwhile, because at the end of that rainbow, there is something that's there that you can go, do you know what? Yeah. And that's one of the things, actually, sorry. That's one of the things.
What did you learn about talking, Les?
Yeah. It is a pod, so it'd be a boring pod if you didn't talk. But that's one of the things, is that, do you know what? It's all right to actually look back. Not often do you look back and go, did a good job, or I had a good 6 months, or whatever, and actually an incentive trip is a way of you going, do you know what? Yeah, I worked really hard for this.
Good way of reflecting.
Yeah. I'll shut up now.
Yeah. And the suppliers have contributed towards it, so it's usually 2 or 3 suppliers and a bit of money from us. So the suppliers have won because we've sold more. The finance house have won because we've leased more of their goods, and Spectrum have won because we've sold a little bit more. So all of those things in together, you can get somewhere quite nice.
Pays for itself.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Graham Frankish, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
No problem.
I think you beat Alex Hormozy. I'll give you on points.
KO.